Um, Talk to me about your thoughts on that, about what happened with 2020 domestically in this country, and was there any saving it? Do you think the ECB should have looked at launching another new format next year?
So fascinating debate, this one. In a nutshell, I think we got greedy. The game got greedy with 2020. The first iteration of 2020 in 2003, the competition was over in 18 days. It was a real feast and festival of that format of the game, concentrating people's focus, attention, the limited resources we had to market this, advertise it, talk about it, amplify it. It was better done in a short period of time to do that. But because the counties realised, and we realised, the game realised just what a cash cow this potentially was, those smaller counties that have small stadiums but don't have international cricket, which is a big source of income for them. So your smaller counties wanted more and more and more 2020 because they could happily fill 3,000 seats, which is the capacity at the smallest ground, twice in a week, twice in 10 days, and do that for a number of weeks on end. The bigger grounds, who were also focusing on international cricket and other, just didn't seem to have the resources and the demand to keep the stadiums full. And full stadiums was what it was all about. That's where the atmosphere gets locked in. If you're part of an event that feels popular, looks popular, is popular, you want to go, and it drives demand. The minute you start seeing a tail off and gaps in stadiums and a little perceived lack of popularity, you start ending up on a bit of a slide. So there was almost two tiers in T20 in this country. The big stadiums weren't quite filling their stadiums as they had previously. The smaller grounds were and wanted more and more of it. So if you look at the stats, you will see that the aggregate total attendance at 2020 over its lifetime in the UK has continued to increase every year. But because we played more and more games, average attendance per game declined. And that was becoming a bit of an issue. So we then desperately and definitely needed to introduce something else into the mix. And that is where the debate around 100 started. There are two ways of potentially being able to do that. One would have been to go back to less is more, but the genie's out the bottle. How are you going to tell some grounds that they can't have as much of this amazing thing as they've had? You could have developed a two-tier system, so maybe played a Premier League, put a lot of the resources, attract the best players into that. But then because it's a sort of democratic sport where every county has the same vote, you're a small county thinking, well, I'm going to get marooned in the second division here. I'm going to miss out on all this exposure. Why am I going to vote for, turkeys voting for Christmas? So I think ultimately the ECB had no choice. They ended up with a semi-political decision. They needed to do something more with this short form game, re-inject the excitement, bring the best players in the world into it. The options to kind of split up the existing 18 counties and create a different form or keep playing 2020 was just unpalatable. So the brave decision they took, which I kind of admire, was to say, we need to differentiate a new turbocharged version of the short form of the game from the existing T20. And that's why they came up with a slightly different format called the 100.
Now, we're not going to turn this into the Cricket Badgers podcast, so I'm not going to go into the rule changes for the 100. But from a marketing perspective, and I've got a blog half written about this, which I didn't publish because they pushed back the 100, launched it because of the pandemic. But it's about where do you place the line? There's a line someone said to me once about a three-legged dog is still a dog. And if you change some rules of cricket, it's still cricket. But to me, there's almost a line in the branding house, if you want to call it that at some point you push it so far and it stops being the game. So what are the things that are core to the game and have to be kept? And what other things can you play around with to try and make something different? So one of the things they've changed is there's only 100 balls, hence the name, and it's all done in a certain time limit. But 6 balls in an over has been the way cricket has been for about 80 years, maybe a number of, it's been formulating the rules. But one of the things in the 100 is one over or some overs are going to be 10 balls. Now, is that pushing the line too far away that it no longer feels like cricket? Or will it, because that line is close enough to that everything else is still the same as just more balls? And what I feel about the 100, without having seen it played yet, is I think that they've pushed the line a long way to crossing it. Now, whether they have crossed it or not, only time will tell. And as an example, to go back to what you mentioned about what T20 was in New Zealand, where it was called Cricket Max or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
While it looked and felt like cricket, they had things like zones on the outfield where if the ball landed in there, you got double the number of runs or something, didn't there? So there was tweaks to the game to make it more exciting. But what they did effectively was just push the line too far and make it more difficult for people to understand. And I think when you listen to the criticism of the 100, it sounds a lot like the criticism of 2020, but it's not Brian Close these days saying it, but somebody else is ringing up, Radio 4 frothing about it, going, "Oh, it's disgusting, it'll kill the game." It's the same criticism. But I think the difference with 2020 to the 100 is 2020 was a game that every amateur cricketer around the country has played. The 100 isn't. And I think that's a point where I think the line has been pushed a long way. Do you have any? I've waffled a little bit there, Stuart, but do you have any thoughts on that? Do you think they've pushed it too far? Would you like to see them go further?
I think it's close, but I don't think it's gone too far. It's really interesting. You're right. We looked at Cricket Max and thought that was too gimmicky. It brought in too many new elements but mainly because the important thing was we were introducing 2020. Just back to that for a second. As a means to an end. We wanted to bring a new audience in, provide that sample product, if you like, to the longer form game. We never wanted 2020 to be an end in itself and people only to watch 2020. We wanted them to fall in love with cricket, or at least like cricket, and then sample the longer form of the product. It's your sort of promotional product in a sense. And so we didn't want it to look too different from the bigger game. I think that's changed a bit, and I think we do accept that some people won't ever want to watch 4 days of cricket and are happy watching a diet of the short form game. To bring that into the 100, I'm not quite so worried. I think for sure the cricket cognoscenti, those people who still love their championship cricket, their 4-day cricket, their 7-hour cricket, they're not probably going to like the 100 ever. And is that a problem? Is that really a problem? If the marketing is right, if the promotion is right, if the new audiences are targeted and persuaded properly to do this, it won't be long before there's new generations of kids coming into these games that don't really worry about a 6-ball over versus a 10-ball over. It's the spectacle, it's the entertainment, it's the social occasion, it's time with their parents, it's sporting, it's athleticism, it's music, it's all of the things that go with it. And I'm not sure it has to relate directly to a game that people play on a Tuesday night on their local rec or somewhere else. So I don't think they have gone too far. And I think it's one of the really interesting things I heard about this was, it's quite interesting that cricket is still played on an imperial basis. It's 6-ball overs. It's back to pounds and shillings almost. It's at least 100 is digitizing the game. Finally, it's only taken till 2021 to do that.
The pitch is still going to be a chain in length, though, isn't it? That's the problem.